Hello and welcome to BioRules video lessons. Today we are going to take a look on photosynthesis to have an overview, very basic idea on how photosynthesis works. But for us to have an idea on photosynthesis, let's remind ourselves first on cell respiration. Cell respiration is a process that we get glucose. Aerobic cell respiration, we also use oxygen, and we are going to be breaking down the glucose into smaller molecules like carbon dioxide and water. The ones on the left are more energetic, the ones on the right are less energetic, so this reaction is exergonic. So when we do this kind of reaction, we manage to get enough energy to extract some electrons. If you didn't see this in high level parts, it's just now it's one kind of energy that we get from the glucose over there when we break it down, some electrons that then we move it back and we give electrons to the entire process that we're going to be having here in order to be able to make ATP. Get ATP plus P, make ATP. Ultimately, the ATP is energy. We are going to be thinking on this here as this reaction has just released energy in the way of ATP. It's a couple reaction. Now we do respiration to be able to produce ATP over here, over there. What is photosynthesis then? It's quite the opposite. We are going to be getting carbon dioxide and water. The energy will come from light, but also this process we are going to be making NAD and ATP and all that stuff, but ultimately we are going to be using light to glue together the CO2 and the water, making carbon dioxide and having a subproduct of oxygen. Ultimately, photosynthesis is the opposite of respiration, but instead of releasing energy into another chemical like ATP, it gets energy from light. Okay? Photosynthesis is basically separated in two parts. One is called light-dependent reaction, that we have what I just showed you before, this formula for photosynthesis. Water is broken down and releases oxygen when using the energy from light. In this process, electrons and protons from the water are given to electron carriers, in this case here NADP. NADP becomes NADPH because we received protons and electrons. Also in this reaction on breaking water, there will be enough energy to make some ATPs. And now we have then ATP that has been made by the breakdown of water releasing oxygen. So this is the light-dependent reaction. If you're a high level, you're going to see this in much more detail in a very near future. Okay, how we break water, releasing oxygen, and making those electrons in the electron carrier and making ATPs. Now, this process is called photophosphorylation because we phosphorylate, so basically we put phosphates like ATP using light. Light, phosphorylation, putting phosphates into the ATP. Once we get that, we are going to be able to carry on. But for you to understand the light being used, we have to understand the light spectrum, the visible light spectrum. It goes from violet over here, which is 380 nanometers wavelength, and goes all the way to here in the red, which is about 760 nanometers the wavelength, the size of the wave. If you are a physics student, if you are on a biology high level, then you need to know the length of the wave, the wavelength. So 380 goes for violet, 400 and something goes for blue, 550 goes for green, 700 and something goes for red. So you need to know this spectrum over here. By the way, not only that, you also need to know how do we see things. So this is an example to show you how we see some colors. If we throw a white light, so all the colors more or less uniformly thrown into an object, the object might absorb some of these wavelengths and might reflect others. For example, this object here is absorbing a little bit of blue, a little bit more of green, a little bit more of orange, and much more of red. What color is this object? pause your video now, think a little bit and say, okay, what is the color of this? Okay, now that you thought, I will pause the video. Let's see the color of this object. Yay, this object is blue. It's blue because it is reflecting blue over here. Let me put blue so you can see better. It's reflecting blue over here. It's absorbing the rest of the colors, reflecting blue, so we see blue. Okay? What color is this? Pause your video, take a moment and try to identify the color of this object. Now that you unpause the video, and you probably made a guess, what color is this? If you guess green, you guessed right. It's absorbing the blue, it's absorbing the red, and is reflecting the green over here. So we see it green. Let's get another one. What about this here? What color is this object? Pause your video, think for a second. Yeah, so what color is it? If you guessed that this is red, you guessed right, because this here is absorbing violet, blue, green, a little bit of yellow and orange, and is reflecting the red over here. So we see it red. Why I'm telling you this? Not because you're supposed to be learning this optics and physics and stuff here in biology, but because this will be very important when we talk about chlorophyll. The pigment that absorbs light to be able to get energy, to make photosynthesis, is called chlorophyll. Typically you have two chlorophylls, chlorophyll A and B, and both together they usually have more or less this absorption spectrum. So what color is going to be chlorophyll? Yeah, you knew already probably that chlorophyll is green, but by seeing this graph, you see that it's reflecting here the mid of the spectrum around 550, so this is green. Okay, it is absorbing red, it is absorbing also here lots of blue, and is reflecting green over there, so we see it green. Okay, so this is the absorption spectrum of chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B more or less together. For you to know what's chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, it's a quite complicated molecule, lots of carbons, but it has one special thing that makes it different from other organic molecules. It has one, wait for it, there, magnesium. So basically, chlorophyll has a magnesium. If anyone asks you which elements are important for life, now you know one more, magnesium. Without magnesium, no chlorophyll, no photosynthesis, no oxygen, and no energy for us. There are two versions of the chlorophyll. Chlorophyll A has that stuff over there, so it has a CH3 in that end, and chlorophyll B has that stuff over there, a COOH in that point. So you have two different versions of chlorophyll. One is a little bit darker than the other. If you want to see the absorption spectrum of each of them, we can have it in here. We have the absorption spectrum of chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. So here it is, chlorophyll A. Oh, it's absorbing red, it's absorbing blue. It's pretty much the same as we saw before. Let's put the chlorophyll B here so you can compare them. Oh, very similar. What's the difference between them? Chlorophyll A is absorbing more uniformly the blue and the red, while chlorophyll B absorbs more on the blue and less on the red. So the chlorophyll B is a little bit more twisted to the reddish side of the spectrum. So chlorophyll B is going to be more toward this here, it's going to be a little bit more yellowish, while chlorophyll A is going to be a little bit more bluish because it absorbs more of the red, so it has a slight change. And the proportion between chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B gives all the shades of green that you see outside of your window. Okay? So, putting things together, solar energy is absorbed by chlorophyll, okay, and is going to be used down by chlorophyll to break down water. When it breaks water, it's going to be releasing electrons, that's taken by the NADPH over there, and hydrogens, of course, that also go to the NADPH, and also is going to be releasing energy enough for us to be able to make some ATPs. And the byproduct of this is going to be oxygen. So this that you just saw is the light-dependent reaction. Sunlight, breaking water, releasing oxygen, making NADPH, and making ATP. So these guys here now in the middle are going to be what we use to glue carbon dioxide together to make glucose. So let's take a look now on the light independent reaction. It's not very independent because it depends on the light dependent reaction, but at that point it's not going to be depending. So we have a lot of excited NADPHs, electrons and protons. We have chemical energy ATP. So what we have to do now is to do the opposite of glycolysis, Link and Krebs cycle. We have to glue the CO2 making glucose. So we made light dependent reaction, which is over there, breaking water with light, making oxygen, and now we are going to be gluing carbon dioxide together using ATP, using NADPH. So we are going to use the energy that was produced during the light dependent reaction to be able to glue the CO2, making C6H12O6, so it gets energy and gets protons and electrons to be able to be glued like that. And now we have made glucose over here, and we have made photosynthesis. Okay, so here putting everything together, light breaks water into oxygen, and in that process going to be releasing electrons and protons that are taken by the NADPH, and also going to be making ATP. These two guys over here are going to be used to glue CO2 in a Calvin cycle, which is quite inverse spinning of the Krebs cycle, making sugars, typically glucose, C6H12O6, and we are going to have photosynthesis, and we have a very organic molecule. Okay, just for you to know the structure of chloroplast, the organelle that does this is like this. So if you are an IB biology student, of course you need to know this, but it might be interesting for you to have an idea at least of what chloroplast looks like. So chloroplast is an organelle, double membrane, endosymbiotic theory. It was taken by another organism to inside, so it has two membranes. It has its own circular naked DNA, it has its own 70S ribosome, and it has this series of little bags over here. These little bags are called chilacoids. There it is, chilacoids. And the chilacoids are going to be where photosynthesis is going to happen. The photosynthesis happens in the interface between the chilacoid lumen and the cytoplasm of the chloroplast, which is called stroma. So in this place here is where you're going to have photosynthesis happening. If you want to know how to draw it, here you have another diagram. Learn how to draw. And later, if you are a IB biology student, especially high level, we are going to see again the chloroplast to try to discuss how each part of this structure help the chloroplast to perform its function. I hope you had fun, and I'll see you in class. Cheers, bye-bye.